Welcome to Thrive Radio. I'm your host, Amy Montgomery, entrepreneur and digital marketing agency owner. Today, my guest is Tom Nardone. He's a serial entrepreneur who's built a remarkable career by embracing bold, unconventional ideas, from founding Priveco, a company that helps people buy the most personal products in private, to creating a $12 million bulletproof vest business. Tom has always been ahead of the curve. Now with Dignity Lift, he's focused on the aging population, providing solutions that preserve independence and dignity. In this episode, we'll explore Tom's journey, his system for finding the best ideas, and how he's turned embarrassment into opportunity. Tom, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Amy. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so you truly are a serial entrepreneur. A lot of people say that, but you truly are, and a very successful one. So it's an honor to have you on today.
Great.
So let's start a little bit about your journey. Can you share your journey? Because you started as an engineer, and then you went into all the online world, and you've launched various websites. Can you talk a little bit about that journey, and what was it like to kind of go through that shift between industries, and what did you learn from that process?
Yeah, it was my journey was an interesting one. My parents were both entrepreneurs. My dad owned a liquor store, and my mom owned ice cream stores. And but I went to engineering school. I had a passion for cars. I loved cars. I still do. After engineering school, I had two jobs. The one I worked at a helicopter company, and the second one I worked at Ford Motor Company. And I loved the job at Ford Motor Company. And I finagled my way. You know, when you're really passionate about something, you can kind of drive yourself to the right location. And I got myself this great job where I wrote business plans for Ford Motor Company. And if you've ever seen like a concept car, have you ever seen like a concept car, Amy, where they're like, this is the car of the future?
Oh, yeah.
Well, before they ever build one of those cars, someone writes a business plan for it. So they'll say like, oh, I think, you know, people are going to have more kids in the future. So let's, instead of making just a regular station wagon, let's make a bigger minivan or something like that, you know? And I got that job and I really liked it and I wanted to be good at it. So I started reading books about writing business plans because I didn't know anything about business planning. I knew about cars. So I tried to brush up on my business plans and, you know, your brain just works in a weird way. Like, at the time, the internet was brand new. This is in the late 90s, like 1997. And then in 1998, I had access to the internet because I'm a straight up nerd. And at the time, there was this new store called Amazon.com, and you could buy books from Amazon.com. And there was no picture of the book, but there was a really thorough description of what was in it. And I had ordered some books on Amazon.com. And actually QVC had a website because they had photographs of the products that they probably use for TV. So, and you could buy things on QVC. And then, so I was like, oh, this is fascinating. People are buying things on this internet. And then at the same time, the internet was used for like looking at pictures of naked people and also having chat room love affairs. There was no pictures. We didn't have webcams back then. You were just like, what's your age and what are you wearing, you know? And I was like, oh God, these things are so embarrassing. Like these are activities no one would ever do in public.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, chat and all that stuff. And I thought maybe this internet offers like privacy that other things don't. Like maybe there's this, and how will people behave when you give them privacy? Like what do they do in private is what you do very different than what you do in public. Yeah. So I came up with a business idea for a store that sold things you wouldn't want to buy in person. And it included like hemorrhoid creams and Depend undergarments and all sorts of stuff like that, wart removers. And I shared it with my coworkers who wrote business plans, and they all loved the idea. So I started it in my spare time, in my spare bedroom, and I built this website that had 49 items. It was called shopinprivate.com, the world's most private store. And I launched it. And at the end of the day, I would check and see if I got any orders, and then I'd get the orders together and I'd ship them out at the post office. Like I still was working. And it was going pretty well. and so was my career. But then I got written up in the Wall Street Journal, and that like the business. So I had to leave Ford Motor Company, which I was pretty sad about at the time, and then go off on my own. So
Wow.
that was in March 1st of 1999 was the day, my last day of work at Ford.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a journey. That's
Yeah, it has been. There's been all sorts of new ventures around that privacy thing. We did all these ventures where we sold the drugstore items, and then people wanted to buy like sexual items like lubricants and toys. And then we started selling bachelorette party supplies, and we started another website that sold Rogaine for, hair loss. We started another website that sold enemas. We sold a website that sold lice products. So we had this warehouse, and then we would build these separate business entities around that type of thing. So
so interesting.
yeah,
It's insane.
it's so weird. It's
Yeah,
very
and then you went on and you started the Bulletproof Vest Company.
right. Yeah. So I think what happened is the privacy business has been good all these years, but I think it reached a ceiling. Two things happened. One, people I don't think are too concerned with buying adult items from Amazon.com. Like I just think they just throw it in there and they don't mind that it's in their order history. Some people obviously do because we're still in business. But I think some people are like, okay, I just order that from Amazon now. And Amazon is a tremendous seller of adult products, tremendous. So that put a ceiling on our business. And then the other thing that put a ceiling on our business was if you need something immediately, like lice shampoos and that type of thing, or condoms on a Friday evening, you can self-checkout at a lot of places and just avoid a cashier altogether. So
Oh yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so with the business sort of stagnating, it was profitable, but it just wasn't getting any bigger. I decided to go back to something I knew about from my helicopter days, which was stopping bullets. And I had a business idea for a company that would make bulletproof vests that were affordable to everyone.
Yeah, and everyone thought that you were nuts.
They
Why
did.
why is that?
Absolutely. Time and time again, I call someone and I'd say, sales call, I'd say, hi, my name's Tom. I started a bulletproof vest company. We have these new vests. So you're interested? And they wouldn't have heard past I started a bulletproof vest company. They'd be like, you started a bulletproof vest company? Like, are you nuts? I'd be like, no, I don't think so, and they'd be like, how do you get liability insurance for that? And I was like, well, there's like standard tests that bulletproof vests go through to make sure they stop the bullets.
Yeah.
So I was like, we just present those tests to the insurance company, and they were happy to insure us. It was expensive to insure them, but
Yeah.
yeah, I like that business a lot. It was fun. It took off.
So how do you what's the advice around how handling some of the doubters when you've got an idea like that and you're going out and because your that
Yeah,
business ended up being very successful for you.
right. But there were a million people that hung up the phone on us. I'm not
Yeah.
buying it. No way. That's stupid. There are a million people. In fact, when I started shoppingprivate.com, that was my first experience with like 80% of the people said that's great, and 20% of the people had no one's ever going to buy anything on the internet. No one's going to use the internet. Or why would they have that delivered? I could just go to the store and buy it. And it's like, okay, well, you can go to the store and buy it. And I don't need, usually I just rationalized it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you can go to the store and buy this stuff, as millions and millions of people do every day. But if you want to buy it privately, my company exists. And guess what? It's the same price. So why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of, I think if the people made sense, maybe it would be more difficult to, to deal with it, deal
Yeah.
with their criticism. But oftentimes they're just, they
It's
don't
just
make it.
fear. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and the other thing, it's funny because you say that, and back when I first started my own online whole thing, like I wasn't selling anything. It was my hobby. I'd make YouTube videos, because I wanted to crack the code on YouTube and how do you grow a
Uh-huh.
YouTube channel, right? Which I eventually did. But I started on Amazon, and because I used to have Amazon as a client, right? And so
Uh-huh.
I knew them. And so I started just document what I was doing and making money. And then before I know it, people were demanding that I teach them. And I
Right.
remember having this lady who, it was back when on Amazon you could go in and find the data of there was a gap and sell a product and make money.
Yep.
And which you really can't do now, but as easily anyway. And so we found a product and I said, okay, 50,000 people are buying this online and there's an absolute market opportunity for you. And she's like, but I would go to Walmart. I'm like, yeah, but 50,000 people a month are going to Amazon.
Right.
But
Right.
I,
Like not
yeah,
everybody has Walmart.
yeah. And then she was so afraid to do it because she would go to Walmart. She never jumped on the opportunity and probably
Yeah.
lost out on a lot. So,
There
and
is a lot of self-doubt. I think I would describe myself as someone with a tremendously large ego. So I think that has helped me in these situations. I also have a very intelligent wife, and so I can bounce these sort of ideas around. And I'm a big sharer. Like when I have an idea, like I could have tried to keep that little idea secret and
yeah,
not shared it with my coworkers who were brilliant people at Ford Motor Company. I mean, there were guys that went to Harvard Business School and Yale and everything like that. And when you tell those people you have an idea and they say, that's a really good one, that gives you a lot of momentum, mental momentum. But if you're full of self-doubt, it's more difficult, I imagine. So,
yeah.
yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about going after niches that are a little bit more embarrassing,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
they also work, right? So and how would you, there's a lot of people that have a fear around that.
Mhm.
How do you learn to push back past that yourself? And you think,
Yeah.
how do you kind of learn to navigate in those spaces?
I remember the first time that it hit me what I was doing with the private products, and what Priveco was about. I needed to buy one of everything I was going to sell. And I made a list of 49 items, and I had sort of crossed where they were the cheapest and where they were the most expensive, because I didn't have like a big distribution deal. I didn't have some distributor of these products. So, but I did realize that the difference between Kmart, which there's a name for you, Kmart or Target, and CVS and Walgreens was about 25%. There was that difference. So I was like, well, I'm going to buy all the things at Kmart and I'll sell them at the CVS price. And at least I won't lose money on the deal.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time when I decided what I was going to sell, I went to Kmart with my girlfriend, who's now my wife, and I had two shopping carts full of the weirdest, ridiculous, most embarrassing things you could imagine. Small condoms, big condoms, depend on your garments. Always super heavy flow pads, like just all the craziest enemas and enema bags and douches and all this stuff. And I had two full shopping carts, and I had to go up to the register. They didn't have self checkout then. And I got in line with these two carts, and I remember the aisle next to me, there was a woman with her daughter, and she pulled her daughter out of line and went like 2 aisles away just so she wasn't even near me. My wife was like, I'll meet you in the car. She didn't even want to be seen. And I remember my heart beating fast and being like really like legitimately nervous and thinking to myself, this is why people will buy from shopandprivate.com, because they experience this, and avoiding this exact situation, even on a smaller scale, is worth the bother. And
Yeah.
that's when I knew there's something to this idea, and this internet is going to change how everything is shopped for. Like we don't shop the same way we do back in the day. Right now, the way I shop, if I need something, I think, is that something I want delivered or something I go get? That's the
Yeah.
first thing I think. Like, I need milk. Okay, I have to go get that, right?
Yeah.
But I need trail mix or something. Well, geez, if I ordered it now, I could have it in 3 days. So I'll just order it online.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like we never thought that way before. So there's an opportunity in there, like, I need this item. I would like to have this delivered. I probably would like to buy it outside of my Amazon account. That's sort of where we fall.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I just got rid of my car.
Oh yeah.
His old car. It was only 700, worth $700. You know, I kind of drove it. I bought it. I was going to drive it in the ground, and I did.
And you
And
did.
and I don't need it,
Uh-huh.
right? So now I get everything online. Everything's delivered, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember back way back in the early internet days, there was a guy call him, he changed his name to like Mr. Internet, and he was going to try to live only ordering through the internet. I mean, and it was like a big challenge. Like he wrote articles about it and news stories covered this guy. And it's like today that would be a complete non-story. I mean,
Yeah.
between DoorDash and I mean, it's ridiculous. You could easily live the rest of your days in a single room.
Yeah. I wish I knew.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
did a marketing agency, and I, you know,
Right.
and if I want to go out someplace, I get a Uber,
Right. I love Uber.
you know, or if I really want a vehicle, like it's cheaper for me to rent it for a week than it
Mhm.
is to pay insurance.
Right. Right.
So it just doesn't make sense, you know. If I was commuting, it'd be one thing, but I don't need to commute.
Right. We used to have a company van here and hardly got used, but sometimes you need like a big van.
Yeah.
And, I was just paying to own it. I just assumed companies own vans. Well, we got rid of it. And now there's a U-Haul place like, it can't be 2 miles from here. And you can order a truck on the app, see what's in stock, and you just show up and drive off in the thing.
Yeah.
It's
You
like,
want to,
I'm
yeah.
not, yeah. And so far in the last 12 months, I've probably done it 4 times. So my bill for using a van as often as I want, right? It's maybe like $400 a year now.
Yeah.
Whereas I used to pay that at least every month in insurance and fees. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's amazing how things are changing.
it's
So
amazing.
now you have a new company called Dignity Lifts.
Right. I
So can
sold
you,
the Bulletproof Vest company, and then I had to like think, what do I do now? Yeah.
and you went after an undeserved market, and what made you decide to create something so practical and also deeply personal? And what was the moment or conversation that sparked your idea?
Sure. Well, I went back to when I worked at Ford and we wrote business plans. I had this great boss. His name was Gurminder Bedi, and he was one of the smartest people I've ever met. He was actually my boss's boss's boss. So he was way up at Ford. And he had a saying, he said, in order to have one great idea, you need 100 ideas. And I thought hard about that. And I was like, boy, this guy is right. And over the years, people would say, like I'd get interviewed and they'd say, what's your favorite saying? And I would say, in order to have one great idea, you need 100 ideas and then a way to find the best, because that's what Gurminder would say. And over the years, I realized 100 is too many. Like coming up with 100 ideas is a lot of work. And you can't wait until you have 100. So I changed it, and after 25 years, I figured I can change it. So I changed it to 36 ideas and a system to find the best. And so when I was selling the one company, I knew it was going to be a big change, but it takes a while to sell a company, like pretty much a better part of a year.
Mm-hmm.
And then I signed on to like run it for a few months so they could transition the whole thing. So I had about 12, 14 months where I was like, I know I need to do something new. So I just I had been writing down business ideas. I keep a little idea book with me almost everywhere I go. And I go through these things and I stick them on the shelf when they're done. They have little sketches on them and, just like ramblings and drawings and all sorts of stuff. You never know, little lists or to-do lists. And I went through all the ideas I had and just kind of said, okay, maybe I'll think of some more. And I tried to read some. So I'm just in this phase of generating ideas. And I was reading books about the future. Have you ever read like one of these futurist books, like what the future holds type of thing? There's people called futurists. There used to be a woman named Faith Popcorn. When I launched Priveco, that's whose book I had read. And she talked about like how the internet's going to affect us all. She wrote the book about that. And I think she was probably spot on, to be honest with you. And there's other people, there's some guy named Ray Kurzweil that Google has fully employed as their futurist.
Wow.
Ray Kurzweil invented the synthesizer, like the keyboard synthesizer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's like a super genius. So there's all these folks. So when I was at, this is a long story, I apologize. When I
No,
was at
okay.
Ford, we worked with a guy from the Age Lab at MIT. And his thing was, his thing was like, the world is going to have to change for people that are aging because the world's not built for them. And pretty soon they're going to have a lot of money and they're going to want things their way. Baby boomers have used to getting things done their way, whereas generations prior just accepted things not being right for them. But the baby boomers insist. So he published a book called The Longevity Economy, which I was really fascinated with. It's a horrible read. I mean, the guy's really smart, but it was like wading through cement to read this book. It was full of facts presented in the worst possible way, Amy. It was awful. But I just kept plugging through it. Like, there's gems in here. I felt like I was mining for gold in that book, like just digging and digging and digging. But I kept with it, and he said a couple of things that were really poignant. Here's one thing that caused me to work on products for elders. Engineers like myself and other product development people like to develop products for themselves. That's why you see lots and lots of like things around cell phones, and engineers love mountain bikes, and they like Jeeps, and they like dirt bikes, and they like cooking. So you see lots of innovative things developed around these activities because that's what we think about all the time, But the problem is that there are certain classes of people that there's no longer product developers among them. So if you're really great at product development, by the time you're 75 years old, you're not working anymore. You're done working. In fact, everybody over 80 is done working. So if there is a need that 80-year-old people have, there's no one of them is going to be like, oh my God, we should change how this works and makes change. Like, for example, hair care products, for example, there are tons and tons of innovations in hair care, but they're typically aimed at younger folks, like you don't see new hair care for 80-year-olds. Like here's a, curler. You don't see curlers that, I don't know, are better for white hair or something like that. By that point, it's like, and you look at like the walkers and things like that, and it's the same old product. No one's cared to update it or anything like that. This book, The Longevity Economy, talked about that. There's no competition in this product development for the elderly. So I was like, I love the idea of no competition.
Yeah.
Because that means the market's underserved. So then I went and looked like what's out there in the whole wide world for elderly people that we don't have in the United States. And I went to trade shows and I traveled around and saw like, how do they handle different things in different countries? And I found all these products, and I brought back a list of ideas, and then I looked, and some of them I realized, oh, we do have that in the United States. I just didn't know about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of the things I wanted to look at was a way for elderly people to bathe well, like on their own. And, and there were a bunch of things in the market I just had never seen, because I don't know, not of that age group, I never noticed them. But toileting, our toilet lifts back here, was something that nobody seemed to care about. Like no other companies, some companies make toilet seats, and other companies make those lift chairs, which are those like recliner seats that you push a button and they stand you up. Yeah. So there's tons of those on the market, but the two companies, they were fine doing, like the lift chair company was fine making lift chairs, and the toilet seat company was fine making $30 toilet seats, but no one wanted to make toilet lifts. So I was like, I'll do it. Yeah. So
Yeah.
then, yeah. So then of the business plans we had written, Dignity Lifts just kept like bubbling to the top. It was the winner of the contest. So then we launched it.
It's amazing.
Yeah. It's
So
fun.
you did a TED Talk on the 36 ideas, and
Uh-huh.
you have a system of kind of breaking down your list and ranking your ideas. Do you want to
Right.
walk us through a little bit about how you kind of walk through that process and
Yeah.
zero in on something that might work?
Sure. I actually brought a little prop. Two props. You saw my idea book. I like to get these on Etsy because people make good ones. And no lines. No lines for the idea book. My thoughts cannot be contained within the lines, Amy. But my system is I imagine it probably varies, but essentially it's a spreadsheet. It's very bothersome to look at. But this is a big life decision. So
Yeah.
what I do is I write down all of the things that are important to me that I think are things like I will do, and some of the things that like my company is capable of doing. And then I also list things that are an advantage for us. And I'll read some of the list. So you have to understand, I'm running this company. There's about 12 people there. Everyone's used to dealing with embarrassing stuff. And we're pretty good at, one of the things I think I'm good at is doing trade shows. And we're good at making videos about the product. And we're good at shipping things quickly. So that's kind of our skill.
Mm-hmm.
We're not the most corporate people in the world. We're not polished. We're just a dozen people in a warehouse in Michigan. So
Mm-hmm.
here's some things. These are things that if it's a yes, they get like a point, and if it's a no, no point. And then basically you answer the questions for all the things and you kind of add up the points. And that'll tell you which ones are the losers and which ones are close to winning. And then you can pick from there. Then you can weight the points. Like you say, oh, this one's really important. It might be worth 10 points, and this one's less important. But here's some things. Is it something we can ship? Is it something we can develop a unique product or solution? Is it something we can create a brand for? Here's one that's unique for us. Does it benefit from charismatic explanation, which was a term we would use for selling something with an online video where you could make like a fun video about it, or you could make a unique video about it, not just, hi, I'm Bill from airconditioners.com, push this button to make it colder. Like you want something charismatic. Then there's, is there a big difference between our indifference to selling this item and most people's unwillingness to sell this thing? So we're looking for an item that we're fine with selling. Priveco, the private company, has no trouble with toilet lifts, but nobody else wants to sell toilet lifts because they don't like toileting. And that to us is gold, because if no one else wants to sell it, you're not going to have arguments over margin. You're not going to have a downward price squeeze. You're not going to have to beat up your suppliers for nickels and dimes. You can just run a fair business. You can be fair with your suppliers. You can be fair with your dealers. You have some budget to not do everything perfectly. Then, what's the average order size? I learned very early selling $5 items that it's very difficult to make money. When we moved into the bulletproof vest business, they were $300 and it's much easier. So we were looking for something that was more expensive this time. So the average toilet lift ends up being about $1,350, so about $1,350, which is
Nice.
that's a good number.
Yeah. Yeah, that is.
Staying out of that. Like one of the businesses I'm in, bachelorette.com, we sell bachelorette party supplies. And a lot of those supplies are like $2.99, $3.99. And you have somebody just putting them in a box at that price. You have this order that has 10 items in it and you ship it out and it's $50. And if you make 1% errors, that means every 10 orders, something went wrong and and it's a customer service issue. So that's not a great business, but we didn't know going into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there good gross margin? Does it require, we were looking for something that required some investment, because if it doesn't take any investment, like drop shipping or sometimes Amazon selling, you just have too many people willing to do what you're trying to do. And that you want that barrier to entry. Well, we wanted the barrier to entry because we had the money. If you don't have money, you're looking for whatever you can get away with, and that would be important. But for us, we wanted that barrier to entry. We didn't want anybody kind of launching a small brand next to our, brand.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? That type of thing.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's amazing. So then how do you once you come up with your golden idea and you're feeling confident about it, how do you kind of get over the fear and commit to the idea? Is there anything else that you kind of go through, and especially when it's something unique like the product that you came up with? How do you trust
Yeah.
how do you trust yourself?
Yeah, I think you really, I've never been afraid to ask people what they think of a product. Like, find the target audience, just politely say, hey, hey, Mr. Person on LinkedIn or Mrs. Person on LinkedIn, I know we don't know each other, but I'm working on a business plan and this is the product. And you send them like a artist sketch or something, and, or whatever. Would you be interested in this? And, it's surprising how easy it is with LinkedIn and other methods to find 100 people and ask them the question and then do a little survey. So, other people would launch, big companies would launch some big market research survey, like Ford would have like focus groups come in and, hire an agency to do that. But that process is available to almost everybody if you just pick up the phone or send some messages around. So that's usually what I do to these type of things. And, and then I would share it with my team. I have, smart friends and smart associates and smart employees. And my wife is a genius. So, that's where you go overcome the fear. There's going to be plenty of fear in the future. So that initial, but I think that's how you leap forward and you answer some of the questions on the list, will people buy this? Is one of the things. Will people pay for it? Will they have it delivered to their home? Yeah, and you can ask those questions if you're in doubt of them. Yeah, but I know a lot of people. If someone's watching this and thinking, I have an idea and I think it's pretty good, but I'm not sure, really just open up your heart a little bit. Trust other people aren't going to steal your idea, because they're not gonna, they're too busy. Everybody's got, everybody's got to get home and make dinner tonight, right? No one's going to take your idea for a better shoehorn unless you go talk to Shoehorns, the competitor, which don't talk to them,
Yeah.
No one's going to jump in and steal your idea. That's not what's going to make your business fail.
I like that.
It's the fact that people aren't interested in it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. It makes me think of the gentleman that I had on from Nike. That he was the former executive at Nike in charge of innovation, and he had to he tried to take charge of just getting everyone's ideas and innovation and creating a full-on department around it, and he did it, but it was difficult, and there was a lot of resistance to it. So even to that, it's like, and he was one of the founders, so that's what caused it to really take off in the beginning, and he was trying to harness that same thing as they grew, and it's just too hard.
Right.
Too much resistance. So to your point, even if you did talk to somebody, you had an idea for a shoe and talked to somebody at Nike, they're not going to do anything with it, probably, right?
Right. Yeah. So I think that sort of boldness, or there's a lot less to lose, I think, than people think there is. It's not. These businesses don't end up perfect. No business I've ever started, was perfect. Like, we never had perfect execution.
Yeah.
And I've launched some that failed, and but what separated the perfect from the failure is usually something that if you had asked people about it initially, they would have told you what was right. So I learned over the years to don't do that. The other mistake I made is, after I had a couple of successes, all of the people around me thought I could do no wrong. And then when I'd say, what do you think of this idea? Like, what do you think of my latest idea? They'd be like, oh, it's so good. But they didn't really think of it. They just thought, oh, this is Tom's latest idea. It must be good.
It must be good. Okay.
Right? Like, I think I see that, and I'll just use a very obvious case is that Elon Musk, right?
Mhm.
Like, he had all these great ideas, and he's doing all this work with SpaceX and Tesla. But then he says, "Oh, I have this idea for something called this Hyperloop. It's like going to be this train and a tunnel, and it's going to work under a vacuum." And he says, "I really think this is a good idea. I'm just going to leave it to the public so you can all use it. Like I'm not going to be involved." And all these people are like, "Wow, what a great idea! Elon Musk has an idea for a super train, right?" And
Yeah.
then a bunch of experts in trains and tunnels and stuff are like, it's not a good idea, dudes. But some people are just like, no, Elon Musk came up with it. It must be a good idea.
Yeah.
And then some companies raised millions of dollars and they built prototypes and everything. And then they realized it's not a good idea. Like there's flaws in that idea. It was created by a very smart guy, but that particular idea should have been vetted a little more. And I learned that even about my little business ideas, that sometimes my friends were not objective. Whereas random people I've never met on LinkedIn or on the internet or on Reddit or wherever were much better at telling me what was right.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. Like
Love
these
that.
people that are online experts at everything,
Yeah.
they love to spout their opinion. They can be used, they can be very useful to you.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
don't like, you may not like what they're saying, and I'm not consulting them anymore. But for a short period of time, when you're deciding whether to invest your life savings in something, maybe you should have someone that'll point out all those small flaws.
Yeah. I did that with my marketing, with
Hmm.
other marketers. I went and I was in this group of competitors.
Uh-huh.
And anytime when I first started to learn, it was before I started my agency. I was a chief marketing officer and I was still honing in on some skills, right? And so I would go and I would work really hard on something and I would go post it and say, what do you guys think? And knowing that my competitors in a way would go out there and pick me apart, like it was like jumping into a tank of piranhas.
Uh-huh.
But it was and sometimes it made me cry.
Yeah, right, right.
But I wanted that because I wanted to get to the point where I was so good that none of the objections that came up were really truly valid,
Right. But you know
right?
what's funny about it is the objections don't stop, do they?
No, they
That
never
they
do.
they don't. The volume of objectives stays high. It's just they're less and less valid on good ideas. And I
Yeah.
think that's important for people to know. It stops a lot of the tears,
Yeah.
like, oh, that's ridiculous. Like every once in a while, just for fun on Facebook, like if I get forget like if I have like an idea for an outfit, not that I buy a lot of outfits. I mean, look at me, I'm dressed in black, right? But or if I have an idea for like some new shoes or something like that, and I'll say like, hey, what do you think of these shoes, on Facebook? Or I remember I wanted to buy a hat. I was like, I'm getting older, my hair is getting thinner. I need a hat to wear around, but I'm 54 years old. I can't wear a baseball hat. Like I'm too old for a baseball hat.
Yeah.
So what kind of hat does a 54-year-old wear? Like like what hat does a 54-year-old person with a big nose wear? Like that's what I want to know. So then I posted on Facebook and everybody's got an opinion. Like my friends, my dirtbag friends with no fashion sense whatsoever are telling me what hat to buy. And it's like, dude, I wouldn't listen to you about anything related to personal appearance. But in the 100 comments, because everybody loves to comment on the hat thing, in the 100 comments, I have people that were designers at Ford Motor Company. One woman that worked in fabrics at Ford Motor Company. I have people that are like artists, like brilliant creative minds. So then by knowing these people, I can be like, okay, I'm listening to you, but I'm not listening to you. And that
Yeah.
helps. So that's kind of fun to do. Apparently I like doing this because I do it recreationally at this point. But they told me what kind of hat to buy, so
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. I should try that on TikTok. My next TikTok, I think
yeah,
I'll put it out there. What do you guys think about this? Give me your opinion.
right, yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm trying to think of some things that I did. Oh, I did a very terrible video series just for my friends. My wife was out of town and my kids were out of town. I was home alone. So I decided to every day I made a different calzone, like baked bread with the stuff in it.
Yeah.
And my last name's Nardone. So I created this stupid video series called Hey Nardone, Will It Calzone? And I started putting things that don't belong in a calzone in a calzone. So the first one I did was lamb vindaloo. So I did a lamb vindaloo calzone. And it was delicious. Calzones are delicious because they lock in all the flavor. And then I did like a carnitas calzone. So then I was like, let me know what other things I should put in calzones. And people came up with all sorts of great ideas.
Yeah. That's
Yeah, I made a shrimp scampi one. That was really good.
Oh wow.
Yeah, see?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just silly creative ideas,
I love it.
Yeah.
So
With
now looking back at everything that you've created, all these different businesses, and what do you hope your legacy will be and what impact do you want to leave on the world, especially for the people you might never have imagined they'd benefit from your inventions?
Oh, wow, that's a heavy question. I don't think I'm that heavy of a guy. I mean, for 26 years, I have provided people a service of some kind and offered them product and service that's worth buying. I will say that. Like I've never felt like I was taking people's money or ripping them off. I always thought like we offer something unique and beneficial, and we exchange funds for that.
Yeah.
So, but I don't really see it. I don't really see myself as leaving much of a legacy. Like I don't really think that's really, and it's never one, it wasn't one of the criteria on the sheet, It's like, will this make a great mark on society? Yeah, and there's thousands of disabled people that can go to the bathroom on their own. That's really great. Right behind you on the wall, I have the first bulletproof vest we made that saved someone's life. So there's a guy named Jerry in New Mexico that's alive because I made a product he could afford. So I feel really good about what I've done.
Yeah.
But honestly, like I'm heading toward retirement quite soon, and I'm gonna walk away from working and just
Probably come up with more ideas, I think.
probably, yeah. My wife keeps saying that. Oh, you're never gonna stop. You're never gonna stop. No, I think I'm gonna
Maybe,
stop acting on them.
yeah, maybe you should start an incubator for all the other people out there that and help them start.
I have a friend in private equity that wants me to do exactly that.
Yeah.
He's like, he said, if you want to run an incubator, I will fund it. But you know
Yeah.
what, Amy? I don't want to run an incubator. I would prefer, I'm thinking surfing is going to occupy a good chunk of my time. I have a hobby. I run a small nonprofit that cleans up trash.
Okay.
So, and my wife and I bought a beach house. So we just recently bought like our retirement house, and it's on the beach.
Nice.
I
Well,
have a feeling I'll be doing a lot of beach cleanup.
you've definitely earned it.
It's been, I've made some really good decisions with the help of a lot of people, and it's worked well for me for sure.
I love that. So I have two more questions for you. One is, what is your truth that you think has gotten you this far in your journey?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a really good one. I think everybody's heard my little saying, 36 ideas in a system to find a great one. But I think there's more to my truth, which is if you can find something that no one else wants to do, you can make money doing it. And that my example for this is the only difference between electricians and plumbers. There's two differences. One, plumbers make about 50% more money. And then, and why do they make more money? Because instead of electrons flowing through what they're putting in your home, it's water and poop. right?
Yeah.
So they make a ton more money just because people want to do what they're doing less.
Yeah.
Not just like homeowners, but the craftsmen who don't want it. Like young 20-year-old guys that are going to become an apprentice don't want to become apprentice plumbers. They want to become the electricians and carpenters seem better to them. But the
Yeah.
only difference is you get your hands a little dirtier doing one thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
So I find that, you know, it's a trade-off, right? I mean, not everybody wants to do it. Like
Yeah.
I'll go to trade shows with my toilet lifts and people snicker a little bit about what I make, you know, but they make lift chairs or they make, you know, wheelchairs and they think the toilet lifts are like a lower class of product. But I just see it as my job and I'm happy to do that job and go home and it makes more money than if I tried to launch a, you know, wheelchair company. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I feel like that in my space too. Probably the reason why I am successful right now is because nobody wants to do social media. They especially
right,
don't want to do 3 posts a day on any given
right,
platform. And I'll just go out there and it's, it's difficult, but I'll go out there and like, hone in and create a month's worth of content in a day. And
uh-huh,
I share how I do it, right? I'll
uh-huh,
even if I'm using ChatGPT to help me out, I share the whole process, but it's
right,
a lot of work and
right.
nobody wants to do it.
I think also one of the things you do really well is your brain works so quickly that you can accomplish a large volume of it.
Yeah, yeah,
And you're
nailed it.
also you're very smart and you're very experienced. And I would guess that most companies, when they look for like a social media person, are trying to hire someone that's 23 years old. And you're not getting that knowledge of how to turn work out quickly and
Yeah,
how to create ton, you know, create the volume that you need. And I think that's your strength.
yeah, and get an ROI
One,
from it. Yeah, and
yeah, right,
yeah, like actually get website traffic because a lot of people will come to me and say, "Oh, I've hired this person, that person. We don't, nothing happens, right?
nothing.
We would
Yeah,
post and I'm like, yeah, that's the problem." And
hmm
so, then I'll take over. And it's interesting because one of my clients actually they have somebody that's, a young person that's just posting versus they saw what I'm doing and they're like, oh, well, we probably need to not work with that person.
right,
Because it's
right.
such a huge night and day. Like, as soon as first 2 weeks out the gate, all the numbers are going up versus,
Uh,
a year
versus
nothing.
just nothing. Yeah,
Yeah.
nothing.
So yeah, I think and I kind of think in the back of my mind though, like how quick will AI catch up, with a lot of that. So I'm always thinking of new ideas.
Yeah,
What can I do, right?
and it's a tool you're using. We use it here, you know, not extensively. Well, sometimes we make silly like we make silly photos and things like that with like a AI thing, whereas we used to have to hire someone.
Yeah.
And but we use ChatGPT to look things over, write things, or you know, come up with 10 bullet points about this. And I mean, even for a tiny company like ours, it saves us a lot. And I
Yeah.
imagine your business where you're just trying to create as much content, a lot of content. I imagine it's
Yeah.
really
Yeah. Because if you want to get an ROI organically, it's volume,
it is.
right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like I do Pinterest a lot and it's like minimum you have to do 90 pins a month. It should be 14 to 25 pins a day.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. And so, people just don't realize it's the massive volume. So, yeah, if you really want to get ROI, you've got to go all in. And I mean, I can still get an ROI on some of the other platforms, like with a post a day, but still, it's a lot, right?
hmm Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
it really is. Like if you look at like one of the thoughts I had for when I retire is to maybe do like you know, create like you know, a thing, you know, like a influencer thing in that age group because there's not a lot of retiree influencers. And but I look at all the influencers that catch fire and I look at the how often they're feeding that machine. You know, these are people that are creating 3-minute Instagram videos on a daily basis, like every day there. I mean, I think I'm done. I think when I retire, I'm just gonna be like, no, I'm not gonna, yeah, I can't do that. I will get no traction.
Yeah, yeah. When I grew my TikTok, I did 15 videos a day.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I
People are like,
applaud your effort. Like
yeah, and
I applaud your effort, but I could never do it. And I see myself as like a volume creator of things, like,
yeah.
well, but I could never in a million years sustain anything close to that. I don't even know if I could do a single day.
Single day.
I don't know, 15 posts. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's,
But I would just, I would run away from the perfection of it and just think,
yeah,
okay,
right.
I'm gonna hit one of these is gonna go viral because, like there's a formula to go viral. And I'm
Hmm.
like, if I keep hitting on this, it's gonna go. And then sure enough, if I just keep on flowing, one thing I say is gonna just go boom and hit the algorithm and
Uh-huh.
work, right? And then I kept doing that until I finally figured out the formula of what
Uh-huh.
it is. And once you know that formula, you still have to sit there and think, okay, what can I create that checks all these boxes off? But at least you have a framework, right?
Right.
Yeah, so it's a little bit easier. And but yeah, it's kind of that idea space too. Like you've got to come up with the good idea in order to really make it pop off. Because I can
Right.
use like Chat GPT even I'll feed the psychology in it and try to get an output. It'll give me a pretty good one, but not enough of a punch. Like if I want
Yeah.
something to really like
Really to make people think.
yeah, like it can't do that.
Yeah, and that's where your experience and your knowledge comes in. Like when you were doing 15 TikToks a day about marketing, I imagine,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah, you could do that because you knew all sorts of stuff about marketing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that it's not a world where you're discovering things. You're an expert and you're giving advice.
Yeah. Well, and also I went viral for getting rid of roaches.
Oh yeah, there you go.
I have a video that has 2.5 million views. Finally put it on private because I just was known for roaches. And I found two other videos. I had reposted it twice and those continued to go viral. And I posted them 3 years ago.
Uh-huh.
And then I also sold out a store, an Amazon store, their main store and the manufacturer for getting rid of parasites. It's kind
Oh,
of
okay.
the same kind of categories that we were talking about. It's like the
Uh-huh.
shocking categories. If I can shock
Sure,
some,
yeah.
yeah, if I can be like, how I got rid of roaches in 1 week,
Yeah.
um, this is how I did it, right?
Yeah.
And then how I got rid of thousands of parasites and 1 foot long.
Yeah, yeah. Brilliant.
Like that's going viral, it, right? So
Yeah.
I kind of feel like if I can find an angle to shock people with something, then it's gonna get traction.
I bet. I bet. You
Yeah.
know, all of this stuff you're saying right now should have been at the beginning of this video because it's the most valuable part of this conversation. Instead, I yapped and yapped for minutes on
Yeah.
it.
No, I'd
Uh,
love to ask you one more question.
oh yeah.
If you were able to give yourself one piece of advice when you first started out, what would it be?
Oh, that's a good one. I know what it is. I absolutely know what it is. It would be sell more expensive things because all of our early struggles, all of it was related to average order size. Like it was just so difficult. You know, you when you're in internet retail, selling things online, one of
Yeah.
the things you have to look at is your customer acquisition cost. How much do you spend per new customer you acquire,
Yeah.
right? And for what most of the things I've ever sold, it's a one and done. Like they buy a bulletproof vest or they buy a toilet lift. Very few of those customers come back for another one. So it's very simple. How much does the thing cost? Like bachelorette party supplies. People generally will plan one bachelorette party in their life because
Yeah.
it's maid of honor. And I mean, if you're popular enough where you're the maid of honor for 5 weddings, you're a rare bird. Usually it's your best friend,
Yeah.
one bachelorette party. So we're going to get that person one time. How much money do we have to spend to advertise to get that person through nowadays they say the funnel to where they place an order. And in our case, it might be like anywhere between, in a good month, it might be $8, and in a bad month, it might be $16, right? And for Bullet Safe, it was, in a good month, it was $50, in a bad month, it was $75. It's a lot easier to acquire customers when you have $50 to $75 to spend than when you only have $7 or $8. It's just nothing you can do. Like, we could never run a billboard or even put a magazine ad in or anything like that because the product was so inexpensive. We couldn't do it. I remember doing a wedding expo for bachelorette.com. We had paid to get like a little booth there, and the booth next to us was a photographer, and the booth next to that was a wedding cakes or something. And and we were like, how many bachelorette parties would we have to supply to make this $500 booth space work? And it was like, we'd have to like reach 100 people here,
Yeah.
with our time and all the other thing. But the photographer next to me, who's charging $2,500 for a session, he only has to sell one or two. And and that's difficult because only so many people come walking around.
Yeah.
So I realized maybe later, that more expensive things are a lot easier to make money on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. So Tom, if there are people that are listening that would love to check out your products, what's the best way to do that?
Oh, well, Dignity Lifts is on dignitylifts.com. So that's a great place to go. Our bachelorette party website is bachelorette.com. That's pretty easy to find. Our adult toy website is vibrators.com. They're pretty easy to find there too as well. And if you want to go on the Wayback Machine, it's not really the Wayback Machine. The website still exists, but if you want to see the world's most private store, which is a fun romp through some weird products, that website is called shopinprivate.com, and that's the one that started it all.
I love it. Tom, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your expertise.
It was a real pleasure, Amy, and you've gained a strong subscriber in me, because when you first contacted me, I started watching your stuff, and I really impressed with the knowledge you share. So
thank you so much. And if you're listening, you want more information about this podcast or upcoming shows, you can visit acalltothrive.com. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful week.